velocity. Boy, that flew. Well, sometimes when they're hit, they stay hit. Kieran Tierney.
Welcome to the After Extra Time podcast. I'm Stuart Kavanagh, and this is the place to be for the big news, the big games, and the big names from the world game. Let me introduce to you my co-host. He is the author of Transatlantic Passage, How the Premier League Redefined Soccer in America, the editor-in-chief of the sportsbank.net. What a website. Check it out. And all-round good guy, Mr. Paul M. Banks. Paul, how are you doing this week, mate?
I'm doing good, man. I'm feeling very inspired. Right before recording this pod, we went over to Foxtrot Market across the street from me, and there is this major event going on with a podcast host. And we're just kind of like, what is this about? What is happening? Why is it so packed? And something called the Morning Toast. It's very geared towards women, and the podcast host was there kind of signing autographs and taking photos, and there was a line out the door and everybody was swooning over it, and I'm like, well, someday after extra time to get to that level. Someday.
Yeah, it's Toastomania over there. That's incredible. The Morning Toast. I don't mind a piece of Morning Toast. I wouldn't mind a piece of the Morning Toast popularity by the sounds of that.
Yeah, I've been raking it in over there. They told me the name of the podcast host, but I already forgot because I'd never heard of it until, a couple hours ago.
Right. All right.
The site looks well. It's got a cute little dog emoji thing in the little, it's got a shop. Wow, it's got a whole this is a whole franchise here.
Oh man, we got a lot of work to do, Paul. We got to get
They've got branded robes and t-shirts and hats and holiday ornaments. Wow, After Extra Time really needs to get on the ball here.
We need to step up our game, get some merch happening, mate. It's time for the winners and losers segment, Paul. It's been a big week in football. Why don't you give us your big winner from the world of football this week?
I'm going to go with two co-winner. I'm going to go with Canada for getting a very favorable grouping in the World Cup draw last Friday. I think Canada is in great position to make it through to the knockout round when you kind of look at who's in their group. And then I'm also going to go with Real Madrid, given their dominating performance last night. They took on the holders of the European trophy, and they said, hey, we're the OGs. We're the original gangsters. We've won it more than anyone else. So you better respect our turf. And that was an ass.
That was an ass whooping. That was an incredible performance from Real Madrid. The Canada stuff, it sort of rings true. There is kind of like there's a bit of just a feel good feeling, I guess you'd say, around Canada at the moment. I can
good feeling. Yeah, there you go.
I could only liken it to when the Socceroos qualified for the World Cup in 2006. I think it was 32 years for the Socceroos at that point. And, they took that feel good feeling all the way to the first knockout round and came very close to beating eventual finalists Italy. I kind of feel the same way about Canada. I feel like they could probably get into the knockout stage. And as a couple of football connoisseurs like ourselves, Paul, once you get to the knockout stage, anything is possible. So very exciting for Team Canada fans.
Right. Plus, they did it without Alphonso Davies for much of qualifying. To win the CONCACAF grouping without him really says a lot.
100%. There's some great picks, Paul. I have gone for Brentford. We're big B leavers again. And yes, we are jumping back on that bandwagon, BANDWAGON. Brentford, that massive win over Chelsea that absolutely nobody saw coming. A bit of a West London derby. I don't know if you saw the highlights, Paul.
True, you could drive from Stamford Bridge to the Brentford Community Stadium in 20 minutes without traffic.
Yep. I think you might have said that last week, actually. And I think I might have predicted Chelsea to actually absolutely give them a walloping. But much like when Stuey predicts is way off base. So, but Brentford, man, they just handed them, talk about an ass kicking. it was incredible. Antonio Rudiger got a pretty decent 35-yard screamer of a goal. Apparently, it was the longest range goal for Chelsea since 2007. So they never shoot that far away from goal, apparently. But it was of little solace to him because Brentford just piled on 4 goals. Christian Eriksen got his first goal in Brentford colours. It was tremendous. And talk about the the feel good feeling. That was huge. That was a great win for Brentford.
Starting to sound like Kirk Van Houten from The Simpsons. Can I borrow a feeling? Remember, that was the name of this single.
Yeah, I've actually, as soon as you said that, I had the picture of the cassette tape cover in my head. Yeah.
I also remember learning about something in U.S. history class called the Era of Good Feelings. I have to look up what that was. I think it's late 19th century, maybe mid 19th century. I don't know what it was, but it sounds like a great time to be alive.
Okay, Paul, let's move on to the loser. Let's move on to the big losers of the week.
We've got such great symmetry here. It flows so well this week. We've got my biggest loser is Chelsea because the blowout loss to Brentford. Then the very next day, it becomes public knowledge that their manager, his wife, is filing for divorce against them. So apparently losing to a team that was just promoted this year is grounds for divorce in that household. So that was we kid. I actually looked it up. She filed the papers a week before. It just didn't get public to then. And obviously, when you've been married to someone for 13 years, I mean, but it's just funny. The timing's funny.
It is funny. And then, yeah.
And then, of course, what happened last night where they lost the home leg of the Champions League quarterfinal, meaning they're in deep shit for, the road leg. So, yeah. So I'd say my biggest loser is Tuchel, but also Chelsea in general.
Honestly, who would have thought things could have got worse for the Blues, but they've managed it. So my question is, do you think that tie is dead? Do you think it's over? The Champions League tie against Real Madrid?
I do. I really do. Stranger things have happened. Like, let's flash back to the moment that got Ole Gunnar Solskjaer the United job on a permanent basis when they overturned that tie against Paris Saint-Germain in 2019, which ended up being, that was a big win at United for the time, but it ended up being kind of a loss in the long run, given how his tenure went. And then, of course, your beloved Liverpool flipping the script against Barcelona on their way to the title.
You are right. Stranger things have happened. And the road goals don't quite hold the same amount of weight this year. So that's why I just kind of feel like they're in with a bit of a sneaky chance. But I think the way they perform in the Premier League this weekend will likely be a good indicator as to, is this just a blip, like just a bad week, or Chelsea finally that exterior pressure is finally leaking onto the pitch at Chelsea?
Well, Tuchel himself said it. Tuchel said it himself in the post-game presser. He said, why are we even going to need to have to worry about Real Madrid next week when Southampton could totally whoop us on the weekend? And he said, we play like this, Southampton will beat us down.
Yeah, 100%. Ralph Hasenhüttl always has a surprise result up his sleeve, so it would not surprise me. I'm going to just move on to my loser. It's very simple. It's very succinct, and regular listeners to the podcast will know my reasoning for this, but I'm just going to quickly run through it again anyway. My biggest loser was Everton, another loss. And then I think just the other night they lost again to Burnley 3-2. Which is one of those teams in and around the relegation race. Their form seems ominous. Like I've spoken about before, I think Frank Lampard is not the right man for the job. It's trouble. There's trouble. And I actually was reading an article last night, Paul. You'll find this very interesting. Of all the teams in the Premiership and then the Championship, so those two divisions that are one on top of the other, Everton are the ones with the longest trophy drought. Now, bear in mind, sometimes these trophies are League One playoff trophies to get into the championship, but still, Everton and their fans are the most starved of success. Their last trophy was in 1996. So there you go. I think they're in strife. I think they're getting relegated. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for the armband. We look back at a moment from the last week or so in football that we want to discuss, and we just metaphorically get it to stick out its arm and we slide the captain's armband onto it. Something that's caught our eye. It could be good, bad, or indifferent. Paul, who are you giving the armband to this week, my man?
There's only one way I can go with this, and that is United hiring Erik ten Hag as their new manager. It's not official yet. There's still some I's to be dotted, some T's to be crossed. They're moving towards finalizing it. And when they do, I think they made the right choice. It's hard to get super excited about any manager hire right now, post Ferguson, because none of it has worked. But I prefer this over Mauricio Pochettino. There's been a couple other names that were tossed around there, but I don't think they were really serious. I think it was just going to be him or Poach. And I think this is the way to go because he looks like Pep Guardiola. And maybe he could be the Pep Guardiola. He even dresses like him too.
Yeah, that's something. Like we were saying off mic just before, I think something that bodes well for him and is a big tick in the box of him becoming Manchester United manager is he's built not one but two tremendous teams at Ajax Amsterdam. I mean, I think Ajax went through the group stages undefeated this year, 6 wins. They lost to Benfica, a little bit unlucky there, but that's another story for another day. But I think if given time, Erik ten Hag will be a success at Old Trafford. There might be a bit of a betting in period where there's a bit of teething problems and stuff, but I think there's the fact that I mean, we're talking like it's happened already. Like you said, some I's to be dotted and some T's to be crossed, but seems like it's just it's a foregone conclusion. I think something that is also going to play in his favor is the fact that there's going to be a lot of players, a lot of dead wood, if I dare say it, leaving the club at the end of the season. Paul Pogba looks like he's leaving. It's very doubtful that CR7 is going to stick around, and there's a whole host of other players. So I think he's coming in, a proven builder of brilliant teams. He's coming into a squad that is just ripe for rebuilding, and I think this could be the one, Paul. I think this might be the one.
Well, as long as they give him time, and as long as they let him do the teardown first before the rebuild. Because like you said, there needs to be that teardown. There needs to be the sell-off. Then we can talk about a rebuild.
As much as I'd hate it, given Ten Hag 3 or 4 years, I think Manchester United will be back to the heady days of the Ferguson era. Great choice for the armband, mate. Erik ten Hag, 100% support this one. This week, I'm going to go with Karim Benzema. His Champions League exploits. This bloke, he ages like a fine wine, doesn't he? He's, there was a big hole at Real Madrid when Cristiano Ronaldo left. A lot of people expected Gareth Bale to kind of step up and become that player that kind of, puts the rest of the team on his shoulders and drags them over the line. It hasn't been Gareth Bale. It's 100% been Karim Benzema. He's an incredible player. Hat tricks in back-to-back Champions League matches. I'm not quite sure how rare that is, but I feel like that's pretty damn rare. My armband goes to Karim Benzema this week.
Great choice, and I'm glad you brought up Ronaldo because that's it. I mean, Ronaldo's always been the man in Champions League. He's always dominated that competition, and he's the big reason why Real Madrid have more copies of old big ears than any other club, and now Benzema is picking up the slack. So I think it is really time to think about not just whether this tie is or not, but whether Real Madrid are going to surprise everybody and end up in the final and take it. And if they are, it's going to be due to Benzema. first and foremost.
With the Champions League, this is interesting. Just a little thought experiment. If Madrid make the final, they'll play one of Liverpool, Benfica, Bayern Munich, or Villarreal. Real Madrid are in the final against any of those four teams. I guess Bayern Munich and Liverpool are probably the two that would probably cause them the most trouble. Can you realistically see them lifting the trophy?
I think so. I mean, City's going to have a year at some point, and it's going to be Manchester City's, but Paris Saint-Germain is already out. Bayern Munich fell behind in the first leg, which is bizarre. So maybe this isn't their year. That's, it's interesting. Last year, Chelsea was the sleeper. And I remember even telling people that around the quarterfinal round or the semifinal round. Hard to think of Real Madrid being the sleeper, but I think they are.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, mate. They are 100% the sleeper in this competition for sure. Honestly, as a Liverpool fan, and I feel pretty gung-ho that we will make the final. I did an article on the sportsbank.net, check it out, about Liverpool's chances of the quadruple. And I actually said that they'd beat Manchester City in the final. Now, I'm not so sure. I think if Madrid make the final, it will kind of be like a clash of two clubs that kind of built their legacy around their success in Europe. So, yeah, watch this space for sure. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's the armband. Paul's given it to Eric Ten Hag and his imminent move to Old Trafford as the new manager for the 2022-23 season. And I've given it to Karim Benzema for his Champions League exploits.
We're flying into the home stretch of the Premier League season as we reach match day 32. And this weekend, it's all about one match between the two sides at the top of the table, and we will get there in due time. In fact, we'll save the best for last and cover it then. But until then, let's cross the I's and dot the T's on the rest of the weekend matches. We begin with Friday night football, where Newcastle United takes on Wolverhampton Wanderers. Stuey, give us your thoughts on this one.
Okay, so I know Wolves Newcastle, there's a bit of a disparity in their Premier League Premier League table position, but I'm actually going with a Newcastle victory here. I think that they'll win 2-1 over Wolverhampton and put a severe dent in their European appearance hopes for next season.
I think that's a very fair call when you consider that Newcastle beefed up in January in order to survive, and they're a lot better team now than their place in the table indicates because of how bad they were before the January window.
Yeah, 100%.
Next, we move on to a matchup of two overpaid, overpriced, overrated Northwest England sides that are struggling to maintain or get above a certain demarcation point. And that is Manchester United traveling to Everton. Everton are in the safety position by a skinny point. United are languishing. They've got to leapfrog both North London teams if they're going to get back into the top four. So it's a big match for both of them. But how do you see this one going?
Well, you'll be glad to hear, Paul, that I actually think Manchester United will win. I think that they'll win comfortably. You won't be so glad to hear that I don't think that's because Manchester United are real good. I think Everton are real bad. I was interested to hear, do you know Everton have the 7th highest paid wage bill of all clubs in the Premier League, and they're sitting in 17th place. Manchester United 2-0.
Yeah, I picked United 2-0 in my preview on the Sports Bank. I know that United have owned this series as of late, and you could definitely call this the spending stupidly cup because that's what both clubs do.
100%, mate. Yep. Okay, so we're in agreement. 2-0. Manchester
All right.
United.
And I just wanted to add that when I was writing my preview today, I thought to myself, man, Everton, that's Stewart's loser like almost every week on this show. Almost you pick them as their loser and well-deserved too.
I do have my favorites. I think we've gone from Palace to Norwich to Tottenham to Everton. And if you graft it out, there'd be a pretty decent pattern going on there. So
absolutely. So next we move on to another favorite club of the pod, and that's the Moose Men of Watford, the team that changes managers like we change underwear and socks. They are hosting Leeds United. Thoughts on this one?
Okay, so 1-1. I think it's going to be a draw. I like what Jesse Marsh is doing at Leeds, but I think Roy Hodgson is a little bit, his experience will help Watford get a point over Leeds here. 1-1.
I'll pick Leeds out of my American bias, and I'll do so by talking about guns and cheeseburgers and trucks and gangster rap music and what other stereotypes the rest of the world has about Americans. Speaking about Americans and stereotypes, because whenever Christian Pulisic does anything big on Twitter, I have often, when his name is trending, I can learn all the things that people say about Americans, and not good things. I have a chapter in my book, actually, in Transatlantic Passage on that. So this time, Pulisic will head to the South Coast, where they'll take on Southampton. And we talked about this earlier in the show already, but Tuchel was saying, they could easily get walloped in this one. And I see the point, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'm going to go with score draw. How do you see it shaping up?
So I've got a bit more faith in this Chelsea squad than their manager, evidently. I think Chelsea will bounce back with a victory here. I've got down here Chelsea 3-1 over Southampton. Ralph Hasenhüttl is capable of pulling out a surprise result to one extreme or the other. But I think Chelsea will win here and it will hold them in good stead for the Champions League match against Real Madrid. I will add a caveat that if they do put in a poor performance and if they do lose to Southampton here, Arsenal and Tottenham are only a few points away from Chelsea on the Premier League table, and it could be the start of a surprise alarming slide.
If anybody's going to know anything about Southampton, it would be somebody who's a fan of their parent club, because obviously Saints are Liverpool's under-19 squad.
Yeah, that's what we thought. That's our what do you call it in baseball? That's our minor league
Triple A club, farm club. Next, we move on to the Ben White Cup, where Arsenal hosts Brighton.
Okay.
A £50 million central defender.
Okay, this is Arsenal are in pretty good form despite their performance against Crystal Palace, and Brighton can't seem to buy a goal. So I've got Arsenal winning 2-0 here, getting back on the winner's sheet.
Sounds good. I would agree with that. How about the other North London club, Tottenham Hotspur? They visit Aston Villa in the late kickoff on Saturday.
So I haven't tracked this as well as I probably should have before the pod, but I feel like ever since Steven Gerrard has taken over at Aston Villa, I've been much more kinder with them on the predictions. And this is glaring to me right now because I'm looking at predictions and I've got them getting a point against Spurs, despite Spurs probably being in some of their best form of the season. So with a sprinkle of Steven Gerrard bias, I'm going to go a 1-1 draw between Villa and Spurs.
I wouldn't be surprised with any result. It's Spurs, you know how it is.
100%. Yep.
Next, we move on to two surprising teams, one exceeding expectations and one falling way below expectations, as Leicester City hosts Crystal Palace. Thoughts on that one?
So I think the party's over for Brendan Rodgers. He'll go down as a historical, head coach manager at Leicester City, but I think the party's over. And I think Patrick Vieira and Crystal Palace will ride into Leicester at the King Power Stadium and take 3 points and take them back to London very happy with a 2-1 victory.
I've been reading up on that. Apparently, he's planning his summer transfer window plans already, and apparently he feels secure.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Like, he's had some tremendous seasons with Leicester, so if he is given another season, it wouldn't surprise me. But I just feel like it just feels like it's naturally coming to an end at the moment. This Leicester City chapter of his life, and when Liverpool drew with Everton a week before they appointed Jurgen Klopp, he said in his post-match interview that he felt pretty secure and had the backing of the board too. So, it wouldn't surprise me if he got the arse at Leicester.
Next, we do our Who Cares Cup or whatever cup with Norwich City hosting Burnley.
Well, what's so funny about that is I've actually predicted a 0-0 draw. So really, who cares? They don't even care enough to get a result in this one. I think it'll be 0-0.
It's really weird when I read stuff online in the British press about how certain fixtures aren't televised. And you're like, what? Like in America, there's no fucking way any NFL regular season game wouldn't be televised. But I look at this and I'm like, yeah, that's one you don't need to put on TV. And then for our final appetizer, for our final warm-up act, we've got a London derby, the Bees. We're back being believers. Again, please hammer, don't hurt them. So is it stop hammer time, or are they gonna float like a butterfly, sting like a bee?
I'm actually going with, I love that. That was perfect, Paul. I actually think it's going to be float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I think it's East meets West in a London derby. And I think Brentford will ride a high, and West Ham might have a bit of a continental hangover after their exploits this morning in their Europa League quarterfinal.
All right. We've done all the table scraps. We've done all the garnish, the salad, the soup courses. Now let's get to the main events. Now let's get to the real meat on the bone.
Oof.
The de facto title match, perhaps. Manchester City hosting Liverpool. Let's get at it.
It's the Premier League Cup is what they're calling it. It's going to be a huge game. For what it's worth, before we get into the nitty gritty of it, I don't think that this will decide the Premier League. I think there's quite a bit of a journey to go afterwards. Let's start with one that people probably know, but it's probably pertinent to mention anyway. Liverpool are winless in their last 4 Premier League games against Manchester City, having drawn 2 and lost 2. Only once in the competition have they had a longer run without a win against them, and that was 5 between November 2011 and December 2013. So there's a bit of an omen there for you Liverpool fans out there. If you're anything like me, you're grasping for anything that means that you're going to win this weekend. And just for you Manchester City fans out there, I hope you have a horrible weekend, but here's a fact for you. Manchester City has lost just 1 of their last 12 Premier League home games against Liverpool, winning 7 and drawing 4. Their only defeat in that run was a 4-1 defeat, and Jurgen Klopp's first ever visit to the Etihad back in November 2015. Okay, over to you, Paul. I'm trying to contain my excitement here.
Well, I do think it was really interesting when City had that like unbeatable team. I want to say the 18-19 or maybe it was 17-18. It was the year they ran away. United finished second. They were 22 points behind, and Liverpool knocked them out of the Champions League, and they beat them in the Premier League, I believe twice, certainly once. Our Liverpool writer Will Willem said to me, it's just what you have to do. Like, you have to go at them. Like, you can't play on your heels. You can't be defensive. Liverpool and Jurgen Klopp understood you have to attack them. Mm-hmm. So I think that's just going to be the main key here, is that we saw a good preview in midweek with Atletico Madrid, and Diego Simeone is a master tactician, and he brought a real strong defense, and City were able to grind out a result and break it down enough. So I think Liverpool is going to come with a completely different approach. I think Liverpool is going to be like Will had said, go right at him. Just show no fear.
Okay. I've got. I think you're right. I think just to build onto your point there, there was a time when these games in the Premier League, I think about Liverpool, Chelsea, Benitez versus Mourinho, or Manchester United, Arsenal. I guess that's a little bit harsh because there's always a bit of needle in those games back in the day. But when the big game between the top two teams that could potentially decide where the Premier League title was going, they were always boring. You could always, it was always very cagey and you weren't sure what was going to happen. I think the one thing that I can absolutely guarantee here from this weekend's game is it will be 90 minutes of entertainment. Like you said, Liverpool won't be backwards in coming forwards. Manchester City, they're the best team in the world at the moment, and they'll back themselves in to go toe to toe with Liverpool also. So I think it'll be an exciting game for sure. I've just got a couple more facts, and then we've got to put our necks on the line, Paul, with our predictions for this weekend. So I'm going to go some player-based fact. Manchester City's Phil Foden, he has scored in each of his last 3 EPL games against Liverpool and could become just the second player to score in 4 straight appearances against the Reds after Jamie Vardy, and he did it five times between 2016 and 2017. I don't know if I've got a typo there, but that's what I've written down. And then on the Liverpool side of the coin, Mohamed Salah has scored 4 of his last 5 EPL games against the Citizens, including 3 in a row in his last 3 appearances. The last player to score in 4 consecutive Premier League appearances against Manchester City was the legend Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, who did so 5 times in a row between December 2000 and October 2003. It must be mentioned that is a very different Manchester City that he was facing. And I just want to mention just about the managers. Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola has lost more in all competitions against Klopp than versus any other manager, while Klopp has lost as many matches against Felix Magath in his managerial career as he has against Guardiola. So, you could say that Guardiola and Klopp are each other's kryptonite, and it's just whoever gets the right dosage of kryptonite on the day will decide the result. But Paul, I'm going to hand over to you. You go first, mate. I was about to say you don't have as much skin in the game, but as a Manchester United fan, I imagine that you're imagining something catastrophic happens and neither side wins.
Die and burn by hell, yeah. Both sides lose.
Yeah.
No, exactly. No, I dislike City much more than I dislike Liverpool, which maybe doesn't make me a true United supporter, but I would beg to differ on that. I think if you're a United supporter from the 2010s onward or whatever, that's who your main foil has been. It's been more City than Liverpool lately, although Liverpool are winning big trophies again. But that's neither here nor there. That has nothing to do with anything about why I'm picking City to win 2-1.
Manchester City to win 2-1. Interesting. Yep. Interesting, Paul. I actually, in the article I referenced earlier, can Liverpool win the treble? The quadruple, sorry. I did say that I think Liverpool will win, and I feel like I have to stick to that. My reasoning for that is I think that a Ruben Diaz-less defense, Manchester City, is going to have a lot of trouble reining in the many options Liverpool have going forwards. And just conversely, I think Virgil van Dijk and Joel Matip or Ibrahim Konate, whoever starts, I think it will probably be Matip, they've been solid as a rock. I think we've only conceded 3 goals this calendar year. So I am actually going the same scoreline, but I'm going the other way around. I think Liverpool will win 2-1. But I don't think that means Liverpool will win the Premier League title.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense to me because City's got an easier run in than Liverpool does.
Yeah, 100. Liverpool have to play, like you talk about rivals. Liverpool play Manchester United. Now, Manchester United are having a bit of a nothing season, but you're telling me that they won't be fired up to ruin Liverpool's title hopes, especially after the walloping they received the first time around this season. Then Liverpool have got to play Everton. Just switch out the names. They'll be fired up too. I think Manchester City are going to win the Premier League again, sadly for me, but I think that they'll lose this game.
All right, before we take off, Stuey, do you have anything from your week ahead that you want to share with our listener?
I actually do, and it feels a little bit weird being on this side of things, Paul. Usually you're the guy in the biz making the moves and having things to talk about, but I've got something to talk about this week. I appeared on the Goals on Film podcast, part of the Edge of the Crowd network. It's a fantastic podcast. We spoke about Moneyball. If you just think about the rewatchables, but just about sports movies, that's basically what we give you. It's a great time. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I urge you all to check it out. That's Goals on Film. Check it out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Love the Duran Duran reference there and the derivative name. Also, Sunny the Sloth, your children's book. Tell the listeners where you can get a copy of that.
We've got the Sunny the Sloth kids book out there on Amazon. Just search up Sunny the Sloth. Sunny the Sloth goes to tryout. Sunny the Sloth goes to school, and there's a couple of new titles coming soon. Beautiful illustrations, just simple little stories for your kids around the 4 to 7, 8-year-old age range, I would say. But check those out on Amazon.com. I usually drop the link to that in the episode notes. So if you're interested in getting your kids into a bit of soccer with some cute sloth action happening at the same time, get Sunny the Sloth.
Well, that's it for another week of After Extra Time. You can follow us on our Twitter account at @AfterET_podcast. Obviously, we need to find the person who has the handle without the underscore, because no one wants underscores in their Twitter handles. Be sure to get all your latest football news on sportsbank.net. Check out Transatlantic Passage, how the Premier League redefined soccer in America. I was pretty pumped to see England and the USA matched in the same grouping. I'm already thinking about having book events with a peg to that match in November, which would be great. As after all, there's an American flag, a British flag, and a soccer ball on the cover.
Seems perfect.
Also, it's just synergy, perfect synergy waiting to happen. Follow me on Twitter at Paul M. Banks. Follow Stuey at Stuey is sick of it. And of course, remember to show the third member of the pod some love by following at Otis Ginger Tabby on Insta. If you enjoy this podcast, please click that subscribe button. And if you really dig it, take the time to give us a 5-star rating. Please subscribe and like, as they always say. Until next week, I'm Paul M. Banks. He's Stuart Kavanaugh, and this has been another edition of After Extra Time.